We are doing probability. I think you'll probably like this. An outcome is the result of an action. Outcome is the important word here. You have an action and you have an outcome. You flip a coin is the action, you get heads is the outcome. You flip a coin, you get tails, that's the outcome. The action is choose a marble. Getting a red one would be the outcome. The action would be throwing a dart. Landing on triple 20 would be the outcome. An event is a collection of possible outcomes. The action might be to roll a die. And all the outcomes would be a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. If you toss a coin, the possible outcomes, or the event, is heads or tails. Choosing a marble. You might have red, black, blue, yellow. You could have other colors, but in our case right now we just have red, black, blue, and yellow. But those form an event. So you have an outcome, which is the result of an action, and you have an event, which is a collection of possible outcomes. Okay, now some language tips here. P of 8 is read as the probability of getting an 8. P of vowel is read as the probability of getting a vowel. P not read is the probability of getting something not read. Okay, in this lesson we're going to be studying theoretical probability. There are two types of probability, theoretical probability and experimental probability. Experimental probability will be the next lesson. Theoretical probability is the number of favorable outcomes over the total number of possible outcomes. So, let's see what we might have here. You select a letter at random from the letters shown. Find the probability of selecting a vowel. No, I don't like that. For example, you might have, let me get a marker, in the die. You have possible outcomes of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So the total number of possible outcomes is a 6. Well, the favorable outcome, if I told you I wanted to roll a 1, then the number of favorable outcomes would be a 1, and the theoretical probability would be 1 out of 6. Now, what if I told you I wanted to roll an even number? Well, there's still a possible roll of 6 items, so it would be possible outcomes on the bottom is 6. And the even numbers, let me get a different color. The even numbers are 2, 4, and 6. So the ones that would be favorable, or the ones that I would want, are 2, 4, and 6, which are 3 items. So it would be 3 out of 6 or 1 out of 2. So theoretical probability is the number of favorable outcomes over the total number of possible outcomes. What you want over what can possibly happen. Alright, now let's look at this one. You select a letter at random from the letters shown. Find the probability of selecting a vowel. Express that probability as a fraction, a decimal, and a percent. Alright, how many possible outcomes are there? There are 5 possible outcomes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 possible outcomes. What's the probability of getting a vowel? Well, A is a vowel, and E is a vowel. So that gives us 2 favorable outcomes. So as a fraction, that would be 2 over 5. Do you remember how to convert that to a decimal? Remember, you take the 2 on the top number and divide it by the bottom number. Move the decimal up here. How many times is 5 going to 20? 4 times. That's 4 times 5 is 20 with 0 remaining. So as a decimal, that would be 0.4. And as a percent, you move it over 2 places, so it will be 40%. Okay, I bet that it's your turn. Find the probability of getting a consonant. Write it as a fraction, a decimal, and a percent. Remember, it's the favorable outcomes over the possible outcomes. Pause the video, try it, and then come back to me. All right, so the the possible outcomes are still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This time, the consonants are the ones we're concerned with as favorable outcomes. So the favorable outcomes are 3. So that would be 3 out of 5 as our fraction. We divide the top number by the bottom number, and we get 6 times 5 is 30, with 0 remaining, so that will be a 0.6. Now we want to move the decimal over 2 places, fill in that 0, and we get 60%. So the probability is 3 out of 5 that you'll get a consonant, or the probability is 0.6 that you'll get a consonant, or the probability is 60%. There's 3 different ways of writing it. Okay, all probabilities range from 0 to 1. When rolling a die, for an example, okay, I'm going to show you this. When rolling a die, there are 6 possible outcomes that you can have. You can get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. Now, over here it says the probability of getting an 8. Do you see an 8 over here? No. So the favorable outcomes that will be possible are 0. Out of the number of possible outcomes, 6. 0 over 6 is equal to 0. So the probability of getting an 8 is 0. Now the probability of getting a number 1 through 6. Well, it's still the number of possible outcomes is 6. And look, if I want a number 1 through 6, that's a good one, 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 and that's a good one. All these numbers are numbers that are 1 through 6. So we put a 6 over there, and we've got 6 out of 6, or 1. So the least you can have is a 0 possibility, and the greatest you can have is a 1 possibility. Or if you think of that as a decimal, as a percent, that would be 0%, 2, and move the decimal over 2 places, 100%. Okay, so from 0 to 100% probability. All right, let's look at this one. Just your turn. Pause the video, try this, and then come back to me. Okay, the probability of getting a red. How many reds do you see there? There are 2 reds, and out of the possible outcomes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the probability of getting a red is 2 out of 7. Probability of getting a yellow. Do you see any yellows? No. So that's 0 out of 7. Or 0. The probability of getting a blue. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue out of 7 possible things that you could choose. So the probability is 5 of 7. Now the probability of getting a red or a blue. Well, they're all red or blue. So any of these would be a successful outcome. So we have 7 outcomes that would be favorable over 7 possible outcomes. So that would be a 1. Did you get all of those? All right. You mix the letters that come in the word acquaintance thoroughly. Without looking, you select one letter. What would be the probability of getting a T? Okay, let's look. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 possible outcomes. So the probability of getting a T, you've got 12 possible outcomes, and how many T's do you see? 1. So that would be 1 out of 12. Let's change that into a decimal. We go 1 divided by 12. $12 will not go into 10, so we go over to the next one. 12 goes into 100 8 times. 8 times 12 is 96. With 4 left over, we bring down another 0. 12 goes into 40 3 times. So that would be 3 times 12 is 36 with 4 left over, and it's going to repeat now. You see it, 4 came there and 4 came there. So that means the 3 is going to repeat. So our decimal is 0.083. Let me write that here, 0.083. To change that into to a percent, we move it over 2 places, and that gives us 8.3%. Let me erase this so we have more room. Okay. I'll get a different color. All right, probability of getting an A is still going to be a possible outcomes of 12, and now there are 1, 2, 3 A's. 3 A's over 12 would give us 1 over 4. You always want to reduce it, okay? 1 over 4. We want to change that into a decimal. We go through the same process. We go 1 divided by 4. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. With 2 left over, bring down a 0. 4 goes into 25 times. So that answer is 0.25. And to change it into a decimal, we move it over 2 places. So that gives us 25% probability. And I'll go back and erase this and get a different color. Let's try blue. All right, probability of a vowel. Well, A is a vowel. U, that makes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 favorable outcomes out of still 12 possible outcomes, and that gives us 1/2. And 1/2 is 0.5. Change that to a percent, 50%. All right, your turn. Same word, just different requirements. Pause the video and work this and see how you did, okay? All right, the probability of a consonant. Remember, there's still 12 possible outcomes. We'll go ahead and put that on every one of them. There's 12 possible outcomes on all 3 of these, okay? Now, the probability of a consonant. Well, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 consonants. So that would be 1/2, and we've already determined that would be 0.5 and 50%. Probability of an N. Let's see, there's 2 N's. That would be 1/6. And so we have to divide by 1 divided by 6. 6 goes into 10 1 time with 4 left over. 6 goes into 40 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. And here we go, 4. It repeats again, so that means the 6 is going to repeat over and over. So that gives us 0.17 because we round the 6 up, okay? So that gives us 0.17. Change it to a decimal, 2 places to the right. That gives us 17%. And I'll erase this to give us more room. All right, so now this one. We've got probability of a Q or a C. Well, a Q or a C is going to be a good thing. So let's see. C is 1. Q makes 2. And another C makes 3. So it gives us 3 out of 12, or 1/4. And just like on the previous page, 1/4 is 0.25 and 25%. I hope you did very well. The complement of an event is the collection of outcomes not contained in the event. So, the probability of a 1, for example, you have 6 possible outcomes, and 1 is the favorable outcome. And there's only one of them. So we get 1/6. Probability of not a 1 means that anything but a 1 would be successful. So that's not a 1, that's not a 1, that's not a 1, that's not a 1, and that's not a 1. So there are 5 favorable outcomes out of 6. So the probability of 1 is 1/6. The complement of the probability of 1 is 5/6. Now, the probability of not a 1 is 5/6. What's the complement of that? Yes, 1/6. If I tell you the probability of blue is equal to 3/7, what would be the probability of not blue? Yes, it would be 4/7, because 4 and 3 make 7/7. What about the probability of red is 10/13? The probability of not red would be what? Yes, 3/13. Okay, you're catching on to it. Alright, here's one for you. The probability of a dark color. Find that, and then find the probability of not a dark color. Pause the video and come back to me. Alright, probability of a dark color. How many possible outcomes do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 possible outcomes. So that means that a dark color would be this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 favorable outcomes. So that gives us 5 out of 8. And without going over here and counting them, we know that the probability of not a dark color, the complement, would be what would make it a total of 8/8. So that would be a 3. 5 plus 3 makes 8. And you come over here and check, probability of not a dark color would be 1, 2, 3. Did you get that?